Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today we're going to be talking about the railings along the side of the ship, or the lifelines. Got a question recently, did the ship have these during World War II? That is a surprising question. You've got a ton of 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old boys on this ship at sea, moving considerably. And there's apparently a thought out there that maybe these ships didn't have lifelines. So that had never crossed my mind. Yes, the ship has lifelines. When you look at historic photos, oftentimes pictures of like a Halsey or somebody like that on board, in the background you can see lifelines just like this. So not only do we know that the ship had lifelines during World War II, but we know that this is an actual World War II stanchion. And there's a couple of interesting features here. So first off, look at this weird overbuilt top part. This is for attaching another post to that just through bolts right through, and then that can support an awning overhead. Pre-air conditioning, the awning would keep the sun from beating off of the steel deck. Got another question about the awnings recently about them being up when the ship was underway. Well, they're not supposed to be up when the ship is underway. They're only when the ship is in port. So before you get underway, you strike all the awnings down below, which is why this is removable. You take the awnings down, you take all the cabling down, and then you unpin this. I believe that question was related to the awning cabling ties off to the gun turrets. So how the heck are you supposed to rotate those without stretching the cables or breaking them? Well, they would never be up when the ship was underway, and you can't rotate them or do anything with the guns when you're in port unless the ship is under her own power. Shore power just doesn't give you enough. So another interesting thing about these is they will fold down. So this is very important with some of the types of guns that can be mounted on the ship, and the threat from swimmers, small boats, low-flying aircraft, things like that. We may need to depress the gun further than the railing can go. So the railings do fold down, and more practically, when you're loading cargo or doing unrep or things like that, this might get in the way. So all of these fold down, and at the lower end here, there is a pin that can be pulled out, and you'll see that this is bolted into a hinge. So you can disconnect the lifelines, pull that pin out, and the thing just goes right down. Or it would if it wasn't painted in place like ours are today. Now, it's probably worth mentioning that for insurance purposes as a museum, we have significantly more going on with our lifelines than the Navy did. Believe it or not, when this ship was being designed in the late 30s, early 40s, nobody had any thought about having school group tours on board the ship. It was designed for full-sized, fully trained sailors. So the lifeline reflects that. There are 3 copper wires that make up the lifeline, a top one, a middle one, and a bottom one. And that is fine. That is more than enough. Someone as an adult like me, I'm hitting it above my waist, so I'm not going to pitch over it if the ship's rocking and I get thrown into the railing. I should be pretty safe. It's not so great for kids. So we have had, and the mooring line here gets in the way of that, but we have had like small kids crawling on the ship and stick their head out under this to look over the side. That's a problem. So we rigged an extra cable here at the bottom and netting between all this so kids don't stick their heads out of there too. That is not original. All this netting is not original, but the lifelines are. Now, like I said, these are original World War II. This isn't the type of lifeline holder that they replaced the ship with later in the career when they had to make changes. Let's go check out some of those. So here is one that was replaced in the 80s. This whole amidship stretch seems to have been swapped out when they did the big conversion to put the new boat handling stuff in. So it functions the same way in general. There's a built-up base down here, and there's 2 pins that lock it in place. So you can undo one pin and hinge it down, or you can undo both pins and just remove it entirely for, you know, the same reasons. Otherwise, it is just a hollow piece of pipe that's had a plate welded over the top that's made to fit, and it's a significantly less solid structure than that I-beam construction that they used in the 80s. Also, does not have any accommodation for awnings. The ship's air conditioned by this point. It's not so big of a concern. Now, interestingly, it does use the exact same structure here, which is you just weld on a piece of round stock and then bend it, and that way you can still get the wire off and on easily, but it's not just going to slide off. Now, these wires are relatively simple. They terminate in this nut sort of structure. I've taken one apart before, and there's like a cone that gets hammered into there to keep it from being able to pull out, and then it all threads together. And you can unthread this to loosen the wire, which will make it easier to unclip this and take it off. Or once you put it back on, you tighten that up and it's secured in place. The copper is used because it's not going to rust as easily out here, although I have seen ships that have steel wires instead of copper. It seems like it's all copper on this ship for whatever reason. So another question I've often been asked is why, if they're going to have a railing lifeline, why do they use cables like this as opposed to a shield? At different points around the deck, especially in World War II, you see that they have shields built up around the guns. Well, why don't they just shield the whole ship? 2 reasons for that. One is weight. You're putting all that extra metal plate on here, and that's going to add weight to the ship. 2 is draining water. We want the water to leave the ship as quickly as possible once it's come on. The ship is designed to go through the water and is going to end up with massive amounts of water on board. And I do know of some ships that have pretty substantial railings front and back that would ship a lot of water up there and then hold that water for a period of time, and that stresses out the keel. So you don't see that too often. In fact, Iowa-class battleships just have that small plating in at the bow and otherwise nothing. And that is so the water will run right over the side when possible. And it's a lot more area for the water to run over the side than, oh, if you could put plating up but still cut holes in it. The holes are still a finite surface area that the water can run through. So saving weight, you're shedding water more easily, and you can fold these down for when you don't need a railing for if we're bringing cargo on board. So at the end of the day, are they effective? Do they work? Yeah, we are aware of one sailor who went overboard in the ship's career, and there is speculation based on what they said prior to going missing that it was intentional. So I am not aware of any incident where somebody accidentally falls off the ship. If it did happen, then they are not a known casualty of the battleship, which means one of 2 things. One, we don't know about it, or more likely at this point, that if they went overboard, they were recovered and returned to the ship. But like I said, we have no evidence that besides that one probably intentional incident, no sailors went overboard. The system works. You will see railings like this on just about all Navy ships. In some instances, they won't be upright railings like this. For example, aircraft carriers, you don't want the plane wing to clip a railing or something like this, or flight decks at the back of the ship. In those cases, the railing actually lays down out the side and is netted, so if somebody falls over, they fall into the net instead of into the ocean. So ships do almost always have lifelines and railings. Even, for example, around the 5-inch guns. Note the welded tab on the gun there. Well, that can't be there if the gun is rotating. Yeah, you can disconnect it when the gun is being used, but when it's not in use, they don't just have a big opening there. There is a railing that can be connected. So, what do you think? Should these ships have fully plated in gun tub style railings? Or do you think the lifeline system was good enough? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate the support you've given the museum over the years. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to continue supporting us. And you can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching.